This upcoming college football season is going to be different in a ton of ways. But when it comes to which new team in a power conference, which one has the best chance to win that conference in year one, to me, there's only one team that stands above the rest. And it's not just because of the elevation. Talked about this multiple times. And that's Utah. And it's for a multitude of reasons. I wanted to list a couple of them. First, their physical style of play translates to any conference and was really the main reason they were able to ascend consistently in the conference formerly known as the Pac-12. It's going to translate. Number two, they return elite personnel at important positions like Cam Rising at quarterback, Brant Keithy, who remember started in front of Dalton Kincaid, who's now with the Bills. And they added Dorian Singer, who's an elite wide receiver through the portal. That's going to be a nice little three-headed monster, and I like their stable of backs. Next, they return 5 offensive linemen that started a game last year, including their best offensive lineman and their leader at guard. 4, the Big 12 is more gettable than it's ever been now that Texas and Oklahoma have left. None of these teams are super familiar with Utah outside of the teams that were in the same conference as them before they all ended up in the Big 12. 5, the schedule sets up beautifully for the Utes with no Kansas State, and the toughest road games are at Oklahoma State, which is scary, but let's see how this Ollie Gordon arrest situation plays out because it's early enough in the year where it could have an impact. And finally, Kyle Whittingham can just flat out coach, man. It doesn't matter the circumstance. The guy knows how to get the most out of his players. And if the key elements can finally stay healthy for Utah, and I know that's a big if, they're going to win the Big 12 this year. Bring in my co-host, former Michigan quarterback David Cohn, who saw Lloyd Carr with a Notre Dame hat on. He's still in shape.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking about you.
Then my brother, former Western State, Colorado wide receiver, Blaine Crain. And look, this isn't a hot take that Utah's going to win the Big 12. They're favored. They've got the best odds on Bet Online right now. I know some other sports books, they're tied with K-State. But when I look at all the elements that they have, and I know they lost Jonah Ellis, who was their big-time sack guy last year, but they returned 8 starters on that defense that should still be really good. I know we're going to talk about some other ones, and Oregon going to the Big Ten, all that stuff's great. But if you were a betting man, I don't know how you wouldn't put your money on Utah to be the new team in a new conference that wins it year one.
Utah's a good pick. You are right. They are the betting favorite right now to win the Big 12. That's plus 320. They are not the favorite, though, to be the team that wins their conference in their first year. That right now is Oregon at plus 215. So a couple of the odds here. Oregon being in the Big 10 now, plus 215. Utah, like we mentioned, plus 320. Same exact odds for Texas to win the SEC, plus 320. Then after that, it starts getting into the thousands. Arizona, 1,000. SMU, plus 1,600 to win their new conference, the ACC now. USC down at plus 2,200, and Colorado's at plus 3,000 right now.
Yeah, depending on how you talk to, Colorado might not lose a game this year. I think there's 2 teams you can realistically look at right now and say they have a chance, and that's Oregon and Texas. And I'm looking at this Texas team right now. When I look at the stuff like this, the first thing I'll look at is what? Who do you have at quarterback? All right, that's the guy that's going to move you consistently from week to week, who's going to have to win you certain games in the SEC especially, and I believe Quinn Ewers is probably going to be one of the best in the nation, and I wouldn't be surprised if he won the Heisman. And if you look at their schedule, it's not great. All right, you have an early week test, week 2 at Michigan. If you want to see who Texas is going to be throughout the year, you're going to watch that football game. Because when we talk about Texas, it's what? It's physicality, right? You're never worried about Sark or the offensive pieces they brought in, Isaiah Bond. I'll never worry about Texas on offense. Schematically, Sark is too good. But I like what they did in the transfer portal. You went and filled that D-line, your O-line, you're bringing back 4 starters. You went and got 3 pieces in the D-line. You got a kid from Arizona who's going to be talented, and you filled some spots in the secondary. You don't have to go get 40 guys in the portal, right? You need to get strategic guys to fix certain problems. And I think Texas is a type of team that is built to win big games. They have the money, they have the depth. So to me, I think Texas has that Georgia games. That Georgia, it's going to be tough. All right, but I think Texas can be a shoe-in to maybe win the SEC.
Well, again, nothing would shock me like when it comes to Texas. But when I look at the reason when we were talking about this before the show, that I had Utah number 1, big gap, and then Oregon 2, and then an even bigger gap between them and everybody else, is, yes, Texas is talented. Nobody's doubting that. You brought up the offensive line, one of the best in the country. But you are going into the SEC, right? As opposed to Utah going into the Big 12. Not that the Big 12 sucks. or that it's a down conference, even without Texas and Oklahoma there. I mean, heck, Oklahoma State's going to be interesting, right? You look at some of the new teams. How's Houston going to be this year? Kansas State, we'll see who kind of fills that vacuum. Arizona going in the Big 12, at the end of the day is going to be interesting as well. But I just don't think Texas has the same chance. What makes Texas more likely than Utah to you?
Well, one, you picked Utah, so I can't pick the same team. And two, I think from a depth standpoint, Texas compete with the best. You saw them roll against Alabama, who's one of the best in the SEC, at Alabama. I mean, with Texas, it's a physicality thing. That's what it is. And look,
I agree.
And Sark's come out and he said that, and he's gone to the transfer portal. He's gotten pieces to fix that, but you won't really know until you see on the field. That's why that Week 2 matchup against Michigan, who's going to show you whether or not Texas will be able to live in the SEC, because they might not throw it once. So I think Texas, if they can win that, all right, and whether the Georgia game is at Georgia, at Texas, I can't remember, but they'll be good enough.
Austin.
It's in Austin. They'll be good enough to
Here's the schedules for these three teams: Utah, Oregon, and Texas. Utah first. Southern Utah, Baylor at home, at Utah State.
Okay, let's stop there for a second. We talk about circumstance, right? Circumstance dictates outcomes most of the time. You got to catch breaks. What just happened at Utah State? Blake Anderson got put on leave, and they're going to fire him for something that happened off the field, which is a shame to me. I know Blake. I like Blake a lot. So Utah State's not going to have a coach. There's one road game where you feel better about.
At Oklahoma State.
Ollie Gordon, is he going to play in that game? Just got arrested under suspicion of DUI. You take him out, Oklahoma State. It's a lot uglier with the makeup off than with him.
Arizona at home.
Should win it.
At Arizona State.
Should win it.
TCU at home.
Should win it.
They go to Houston.
Should win it.
They get BYU at home.
Win.
They do go to Colorado. Iowa State at home, and then they finish at UCF.
I mean, the UCF to me, that's probably right now the hardest. Again, if we're saying Oklahoma State does have Ollie Gordon, obviously it's not going to be easy. If they don't have him, that makes it easier. I just look at that schedule. You get Arizona at home, who's going to be tough, even though Jed Fish is gone and gone to Washington. Utah State doesn't, their coach is gone now with Blake, unfortunately. I hate it for him, but it's the truth. I mean, I look at that schedule. I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be hard for Utah to me not to go 11.
Yeah, no doubt. Here's Oregon. Idaho at home. Boise State at home. They go to Oregon State. Remember, that's no longer a conference game now. They go to UCLA. Michigan State at home. They get the Buckeyes at home. We've been talking about that all summer. They go to Purdue. Illinois at home. They go to the Big House to play Michigan. Maryland at home. Wisconsin on the road. And then they get Washington at home.
Yeah, it's, again, Oregon to me was number 2. And I'm going to say this right now, and I know we don't make our sturdy predictions until after fall camp, and that's the smartest way to do it. But I want to go ahead and throw one out there right now. And I did it on social media a couple days ago. Oregon will beat Ohio State at home in the regular season. Oregon will beat.
Well, then they'd have to do it in a rematch to win the conference. Assuming that was the
for sure. I think Oregon beats Ohio State at home and loses to Michigan on the road. I'm telling you, just the Spidey senses.
Like the way you think,
Spidey
Jake.
Senses in that one. Oh, I know. As a Michigan alum, I know that.
Now, here's Texas. Colorado State at home. Like Blaine said, they go on the road to Michigan. The year they joined the SEC, they got the defending national champs on the road in the Big House. UTSA at home. UL Monroe at home. Mississippi State at home. Oklahoma Red River Shootout, so that'll be neutral site. They get Georgia and Austin. They go on the road to Vanderbilt, so they're coming here to Nashville. They get Florida at home. On the road to Arkansas, Kentucky at home, and then they go to Texas A&M, which we've been talking about, which that
I'm
one's
telling
a little
you,
saucier now.
That Georgia game is going to dictate a lot, because you look at a lot of other teams on that schedule, Texas is better than.
No Alabama on there, no LSU on there.
No Ole Miss.
No Ole Miss on there. Missouri.
No Missouri.
No Missouri on there. So very interesting. Here's the thing, though. So we were breaking this down in terms of best chances to win their new conference. What if we pivot it and say, which one of these teams could go the farthest in the college football playoff? Would you still stick with Utah?
I wouldn't. I would say Oregon. I would say Oregon out of those 3 teams, and Texas would probably be 2. I'd probably have Utah 3, but here's where Utah's is dangerous to me, is that most people would think that, right? I think Utah, and I said this, before last week, I think Utah has a chance to do damage in the playoff. Now, if you told me, Jake, who do you think is going to go the furthest between Texas, Oregon, and Utah? Like I said, I would go Oregon 1, Texas 2, Utah 3. But I think Utah kind of being as sneaky as they possibly could, making the playoff outside of being in the Big Ten or in the SEC. We'd have to see the matchups. But like, nobody would be shocked if Utah, let's say, beat Alabama in the playoff in the first or second round. Would anybody truly?
Well, and if they won their
shocked?
conference, it wouldn't even be in the first round.
Yeah, they'd get a
Right,
bye.
'cause they'd
That's
get a
true.
bye.
That's true.
If they were the conference
So
champs.
it'd have to be at least the second. So that's how I would put it. Hey, what's up, YouTube? Do us a favor. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Turn that notification bell on so whenever we drop content, you guys know we love you. Booster Club for life.